Good afternoon, greater Philadelphia area. This is Tool Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. He's Adam Lavin. Grateful to have you on, my man. We'll give an intro here in a second. Adam and I both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the number one RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we're going to be talking about the main reason buyers might feel stuck right now. We had the pleasure to speak to Barry Habib, the CEO of MBS Highway. He's on the Fannie Mae board. He gave some real insight there, as well as the consumers' current frustrations with the real estate market and what it means for the greater Philadelphia area. And we also got some local news where there's more development happening around Ardmore train station, as well as some pushback on the Exton Mall. And we've got some killer new listings and some open houses this weekend as well. So if you get some value out of this or you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with Adam to talk about your real estate needs, you can do that with the link right in the comments. So, Adam, grateful to have you on, man. I'm looking forward to hearing your insights on all this stuff. Why don't you give everyone watching and listening just a little introduction about your background, who you are, and why you're such a kick-ass agent?
So my name is Adam Lavin, obviously. I got into real estate originally in Delaware in 2015, was doing it for a little bit, got back out. I've run restaurants pretty much my entire life, restaurants and hotels. And right after the pandemic was about when I switched, which is, I guess, kind of when a lot of people got in.
Yes.
But I really took to it. I really enjoyed it. It's not an office job by any means. It's nonstop action packed, but I still get to help a lot of people. So I love it. And, honestly, I think the thing that helps me out the most is my demeanor. I think I'm pretty cool headed, pretty even keel. And, I'm just here to help people. And more than anything, I find myself to be the one that's available all the time. I'll work morning, noon, and night, holidays. I mean, you've been there with me.
Yes.
And sometimes the best ability is availability. And that's what I do for my clients.
Love that. And, a cool head is really important in these transactions. I
Really
cannot
is.
stress that enough. A lot of agents are addicted to drama, and Adam is not one of them. So if you want to get in touch with them, just click on the link. We'll schedule a call with Adam. We're going to talk about his insights today. So I wanted to start with this. We talk all the time about market conditions and what's happening. And I got the chance to talk to Barry Habib. He's the MBS Highway CEO. He won this award called the Crystal Ball. This is pretty fascinating. So it's awarded to people that are the most accurate with their forecasts. So it's not like a participation trophy.
Right.
And he got this 4 times in a row. So he knows his stuff. He's probably one of the biggest people in mortgage. And he feels that one of the reasons that affordability is such a problem right now, it's not about mortgage rates, but it's about structural changes. And he said that even if rates were to go to 5.5, he doesn't know that affordability is going to magically return to the market because of the cost structure within Fannie Mae makes borrowing too expensive. You've been doing this for a decade now. What do you think about this statement here? Because everyone talks about rates, but I don't know that a 5.5 rate's going to change a lot for people.
Well,
It will for some.
yeah, I would say for some, and I think initially it will. Really what I'm running into is, people get pre-approved. They essentially spend all the money that's available within their debt to income ratio, which is mostly what holds people back from going up to the next level. What we saw in 2021, 2022 was realistically, that's what was happening. And that's what increased property values. And so I would just assume, if we go down to 5.5, that's going to happen again. And there may be the small group of people that get in there prior to, but we're going to be right back in the same situation we are right now.
And that's what he's talking about here, because we're in a much different market than other places. You look at like
100%.
the national numbers, and then you look at what happened. We're going to actually do some comparisons here about what's going on locally. And he talked about that policy reform post 2008. They went too far. Fannie Mae had all these capital reforms that were designed to prevent another collapse, and they were so cautious they now hold back qualified buyers. And he's now on the Fannie Mae board, which is incredible. This guy's originated like 3,000 loans on his own, so it's kind of like one of us getting appointed.
An insider track.
Yeah, and so he talks about rebalancing the system by aligning capital requirements and risk-based pricing with actual market data. So for all the jargon here, it's basically He wants it could help. He wants to help people enter the market without increased taxpayer risk, and he's about using better data to price things correctly. Because right now the federal government uses all these like outdated ways to look at data that the market doesn't agree with. So, do you see that the Fed has a blind spot right now? I mean, because a lot of people have talked about their lagging measures and they're too slow to move, and that's exactly what he was talking about in this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think to a point, I think exactly, what you said there that he brought up is that they're constantly looking in the rearview mirror, essentially,
Hmm.
and really, especially when the market's doing what it's doing. Like you said, different parts of the country have been sliding backwards. Our market, purely based on supply and demand, is not doing that at all. And there's really, from what I can tell, and maybe you can shine some light on this, but there's zero local data to show that it's not going to continue to progress, at least at some percent, going forward for the foreseeable future. And so, if the Fed is basing what's happening, last year in other markets and on a national basis as to what's going on in our market, I don't think that's necessarily accurate or fair to the buyers that are here.
So you're absolutely right on, because there's some data out there, and there was a report that just came out from a survey that was done about what happened in the month of September and August, and they talked about purchase cancellations and listing withdrawals,
Mhm.
and they were up among some of the highest numbers that we've seen. So in the month of August, there was 56,000 purchase agreements that were canceled, 15.1% of the total that went under contract, according to Redfin. Once you get north of 15%, that you see those spikes like during COVID,
Mhm.
when rates went up to 8% a couple years ago. So that is danger territory there. The usual range, if you look back at this data, is typically like 12 to 15. So like that north of 15 is when it gets a little dicey, because
Sure.
people kill. I mean, they kill deals all the time, and it's not always because of the market. This was the highest August termination rate since 2017. So that's pretty substantial. And then through September, withdrawals were happening at a rate of 42.3% of new listings, according to Mike Simonson, the chief economist at Compass. Now, he looked at Compass data, so that's going to be skewed. It's not going to be everybody.
Sure.
But that's significantly higher than what we've seen in September. Now, here's what happens in Philadelphia. So here's your point, Adam. The number of canceled listings, because withdrawn they mean different
Yeah.
status at different places. It's only 2.1% increase compared to this time last year. When you look at the month of September, there was 96 canceled listings in the metro Philadelphia area. That's not very many. When you think about, there was 1,890 new contracts during
Yeah.
the month of September. There's 1,727 new listings. So that data point right there really illustrates what you said, that our market is not like these other places, and it's actually stronger than even surrounding areas like DC or Baltimore or even New Jersey right now with some of the tax issues they're having.
100%.
So when you how do you manage expectations with clients? You're talking to tons of people a day, and they see this data.
Mhm.
Then you know what's going on. So what's that conversation like? Because it's never fun telling someone they're wrong, and if you said it like that, you're probably not going to be helping a lot of people. So you need some bedside manner. So what's your process there? What do consumers need to hear?
100%. Well, I would say, first of all, it depends if you're talking to a buyer or a seller. Um, People hear what they want to hear, and you also have to really find out where they're getting their information from. I think that's usually the best place to start, is to understand what they understand, because the exact conversation that we just had,
Hmm.
if we're comparing, what's happening in our market to what they've heard on, if their source is Yahoo News or CNN or whatever,
Yeah.
then what they know is not false. It just doesn't pertain to our market. And then particularly, when you're looking within Delaware County, Chester County, Montgomery County, it's also school district
Yep.
dependent right now. I mean, just in Delaware County, what's happening in Radnor is not necessarily what's happening in Springfield, and not
Hmm.
necessarily what's happening in Upper Darby. So that's really where you have to start, is understand what they know overall about the market, what their expectations are, whether on the buy side or the sell side. Find out what their goals are, and then focus them on the market and show them their market data. But not even on a county basis or a state basis. They really have to zone into the exact neighborhood that they're looking in.
That's such good advice. And so many agents get lost in this stuff because you're right. I mean, you go into Philadelphia right now; it's very different
Totally
than the
different.
suburban counties. And then you go
I
into
was
certain neighborhoods of
gonna say,
Philadelphia, it's like
South Philadelphia to North Philadelphia, totally different. And even in South Philadelphia, depending on what side of Broad Street you're on, completely different market.
100%. I mean, you cross the wrong side of the street. Doesn't matter which. Could be
Yeah.
any street. It's always like that. And that's where having someone like Adam can articulate that data in ways people can understand. So, what are some techniques you use, or what are some things that you feel consumers understand a lot better? Because obviously, you talk about like some of these advanced data points. Your average consumer is not going to get that. They move every 11 to 12 years.
100%.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important things for if you're an agent talking to the general consumer, I would say maybe 1% can speak on a super high level. And then beyond that, there's 10% that sort of understand what you're talking about. But when you get down to it, none of that matters. It really doesn't. People are going to move because they have to move.
Mhm.
People are going to buy because they want to buy. And sometimes they have to do that because they don't want to do it. But regardless, there's a life event that's going to cause it. And then from there, it's looking at the data and me taking it in and then pretty much putting it into a first grade understanding package of, hey, this is how what's going on right now is going to affect your goals. You have options A, B, and C, or 1, 2, and 3.
Mhm.
This is the potential outcome of these options. Which one's the best for you?
If more agents just did what you did there and stop injecting what they think, their own opinion, the drama, right?
Yeah.
All that, it would just make it so much easier for consumers. And I think that's often the bottleneck with real estate agents is they do things for their reasons, not the consumer's
Yeah.
reasons, instead of just presenting it in an objective way. And it's not easy to do, by the way. That's not, that's a hard skill to learn.
No, 100%. And what you said with, sometimes real estate agents become this third party in the transaction, and their opinion isn't needed. It's what's the goal of the seller? What's the goal of the buyer? And our job is just to mediate that situation, make sure everybody stays within the guardrails, and that our clients are getting the expectation and outcome that they want. And I call some agents like hurricane agents, where they come in and all of a sudden we're off on in left field. Unbeknownst to the buyer or seller. And so really it's like I said in the beginning, it's being the calm in the storm and bringing it back to the center of, hey, what's everybody's goal here? And how do we get to it smoothly?
That's such good advice. And for consumers, if you find yourself like feeling worked up and stressed out, maybe it's time for a new agent. That would be my advice, because there's enough stress in real estate as it is. You don't need it from the professional.
I was going to say, moving is not fun.
It's hard.
I think you need to be honest with people. And so, especially if you're trying to sell a house and buy a house at the same time, particularly if you have to relocate to a completely different area that you're unfamiliar with, like it is not fun. And if you have kids and you're dealing with, school and this and that and baseball after work, and, it's already too much. And so myself or the other agent or whoever you're talking to, getting involved in causing stress in your life, that should be the last thing that you're experiencing.
That's really great advice. And when you talk about moving sucks. I mean,
Yeah,
I think
there's
it's
no
not
two
fun.
ways about it.
Buying a home's fun because you're moving somewhere else. Not every time though. I think the upsize move is very fun. The first time purchase is the downsize move is stressful for a lot of people.
Yeah, the downsize move, if anybody's working with downsizers, they have to understand that right now the buyer process is different for everybody. And a first-time home buyer, they're going to go out, they're going to see maybe 6 to 8 homes and kind of zone in on what they want. And as long as they have that pre-approval or, a chunk of cash from wherever, they're ready to pull the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Downsizers, it's totally different. Even if they're staying in the area that they're familiar with, it's an emotional process, because the number one thing that's going to happen is you have to get rid of stuff, and people accumulate so much stuff. So just that process is emotionally draining, and people don't even realize it. And then you're leaving behind memories. Most of the people that are downsizing from these 3,000 square foot plus homes, they had kids there, they had dogs there, they had cats, whatever, and family over, and all these memories. And as they're going through the process, and they're coming into these smaller homes and they're wondering, well, where's Thanksgiving going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the Christmas tree going? And they realize, hey, there's not as much space as there was when we had the 20-foot cathedral ceilings. It's a reality check, and it's an emotional process that you as an agent have to understand and allow people to go through the process that they need to go through.
It's not often not even about the actual move itself. It's about everything
else.
What the move's going to mean to them after
Yeah.
they get in there. And I think that's one of the reasons why buyers and sellers are a little gun shy right now. There's inventory still at a 2.39 month supply through last month in the metro Philadelphia area. And there is some pessimism in the market. I want to get your take on this, Adam. So Fannie Mae's September home purchase sentiment index, basically how people feel about the market.
Sure.
You want to get in your feelings here? We're the show for you. They found that 73% of consumers surveyed that said it was a bad time to buy a home. 27% of respondents said it was a good time to buy, and consumers were more optimistic about selling conditions, 57% saying it's a good time to sell. That dropped from 65% a year ago, and it's clear there's some frustration here for sure. The comments from Fannie Mae were that there were some winners in the market, like home sellers who downsize the condos and buy them both in cash. I think that's a lot easier. They can, because those buyers can afford higher mortgage payments in a condo market where there's 72% more sellers than buyers, but that's usually not what we're seeing around here. So how do you people timing the market, right? Is it a bad time to buy? Is it a good, we talk about this. We've talked about this a lot, you and I, over the past 30 days, like, hey, I'm waiting until the spring and these things are happening. What are you doing to people? How are you counseling them? Because you can make the argument that it's probably not a good time to buy a home right now, unless your needs dictate that, like you said. For the people that are purely trying to time this, what would you tell them? Because I think there are some generational trends here that we're going to get into that may need to get adjusted.
Yeah, for sure. Again, it's totally dependent on where the person is going in life. 100%. So there's kind of different brackets here, and the insanity one is sort of the first time home buyer that's going after a single family home because their main competition are these downsizers that are also coming after them. And so you have two generations combining, fighting over houses. And so, in that scenario, if you don't like the options that are out there right now, then perhaps it might be a better idea to wait, because I know that a lot of downsizers are waiting to put their home on the market till spring for a variety of reasons. A lot of them think that they're going to get more money, and that may be true. However, what we do know is that there's probably going to be more competition at that point. But there's going to be more buyers out there. We know that because we're back into what I would say is like a regularly seasonal market. Now, past that, what I would say is those home buyers that already have owned their first time home, especially if they bought like at 2020 or before 2020, they have a decent amount of equity in their home. And so if they're moving up into that weird price range of like sub 1 million, but around 750, there's a lot of options out there right now that are great homes. And now's the time to go in because there's zero competition. There's zero competition because most of those people are totally inundated with their kids right now. The other market that is surprisingly super soft right now, and there's a lot of options, and it really is a great time to buy, is anybody that's more in the luxury market on the resale side of, like, let's say the 1.5 or somewhere around there in our area. And primarily, to me, from my perspective of what has really driven that over the last year or two is the amount of new construction that's occurred around here. All of the single family homes have been plus 1 million. So you've already had homes that, are in the 4,000, 5,000 square foot range in the luxury market. And that market has been flooded with new construction over the last couple of years. And so you have options. And if you have the cash to do so, now's the time to do it before the spring buyers come back in. So it really depends on, if you have to and what segment you're in and what your goals are.
What you said there is, do you have to, number one? And then you kind of, I think that's the best advice you can give anybody, because there's always what's best for Adam isn't going to be what's best for Tom, right? It's going to be what's best for you. And then you have to go local here, because there's a lot of these doomers out there about housing right now. And there was a tweet that came out from Mark Zandi. He's he's an economist. He's the chief economist over at Moody's, and he talked about the state level data, why the U.S. economy is on the edge of a recession, right? So there's a whole like heat map. I don't know if you saw this article today that came out. Well, Pennsylvania's not one of them. They're in business cycle expansion mode. Now, a lot of states, if you look at how they they calculate this by how much of the state, what they're generating in the percentage of U.S. GDP. So you go look at this data here. Well, there's like Wyoming, Montana, Mississippi, Kansas, Massachusetts, Washington, Georgia, a lot of states that are a little, and Massachusetts, the market's still very strong, but they're saying that they're at the risk of suffering a recession. So it's about, I don't know, like 25 states here. And then they have some in the yellow, just like a stoplight. You got people treading water, Michigan, Colorado, Tennessee, California, New York. And then you got Pennsylvania. They're 3.54% of the U.S. GDP. That's a pretty substantial percentage given the population here. The only other state that is at a higher percentage in the green, there's two. It's Florida and Texas. They have more people. I mean, that's just what it is. So, or they got more industry there. And so I think you really got to understand what's going on locally, because people are going to tell you, I heard what's going on in Florida, right? I see this new construction. So we're not in Florida. We're in Philadelphia. And this is the kind of data that you really want to be looking at, because our economy is doing a lot better. You're seeing like mergers and acquisitions happening. We were talking about developing some new construction and some commercial development, which we'll hit on in a second. That stuff's not stopping here. And that's the difference between our state versus many others. So do you see that? Do you have any reload buyers that are kind of seeing the opposite right now, or they're a little gun shy because of that? Or, I mean, we know a lot of people stay local. So.
Yeah, I have two reload buyers that aren't doing so because of work. They're doing so because of personal reasons. They're actually stuck in the states that they're in because their home values are going a little bit backwards. What I know is, this is not the first time that there's been some instability on a national level.
Mhm.
And every time we see that, whether you want to call it a recession or not, whether they tag the name or not, there's people that become fearful, and there's people that take advantage of the market when fear exists. And almost every single time, the people that take advantage of it are the ones that come out on top. It happened in 2020. It happened, in 2010. It happened in the 90s during the dot-com bubble. It depends on what your risk tolerance is, and again, what your ultimate goals are. If it's a good time to buy for you personally and your finances are together, then go for it.
I love that you said if it's a good time to buy for you personally, because you've probably heard these real estate agents. You're going to see these memes come out this week. This is the best week to buy a home in the year. Have you started seeing any of this yet? It's like, what does that even mean? I mean, I get it. There's a little less activity, maybe get a little better price, but if it's not right for you or your significant other or your household, it's not right. It's just not it. So you got to look at what's best for you, number one. And when you get into, I'm curious what you think about some of the generational trends, because I think there's going to be a shift here that's happened, where if you look at the aspiring home buyers right now, 1 in 6 of those people, according to Axios research, they abandoned their dreams of home ownership in the past 6 years because they felt like they couldn't afford the home that they liked. And now, if you look at by the numbers, 7% of aspiring homeowners are actively attending open houses and searching for homes in the area. Those are some smart people right now, based on everything that you said. Gen Z is the most likely to be on the prowl for a home, with roughly 9% of Gen Z looking for a property right now. 7% of millennials and Gen Xers are shopping around, and only 5% of baby boomers. Those numbers don't surprise me. Millennials, though, are probably the people that gave up the most. They're identified as 22% of millennials gave up their dream of home ownership. And I think there's some of these younger generations, especially Gen Z, they're in a tough spot right now because some of them didn't buy homes. They're struggling with affordability. Is that where you see the bottleneck with a lot of the people in the marketplace? What are you seeing in the field every day here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottleneck is exactly what you described. Is the younger you are, the harder it is to get a high-paying job right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is that segment of every generation that comes out on top and does well for themselves.
Sure.
And the high-income earners are out there and they're shopping. But even for them, the way that the values are right now, they're kind of maxed out on what they can afford in order to meet their goals. And I think a lot of what goes along with that are, just as many people that are their friends or family of the same age. They're just not able to do it on paper. Now, I noticed a lot, especially over the last couple of years, a lot of buyers have had the privilege of having parents or family members that have been able to help them out and get
Yep.
them kind of over that hump
More than ever.
more than ever. And I think a lot of what has been driving that, I have one client that's under contract right now, is the amount of equity that a lot of these parents have in their homes. And so they're kind of able to rob Peter to pay Paul to help their family members out. And so that's where I see that happening. Um, and the people that aren't able to do it and are, so basically giving up on their dream, if you want to call it that, are the ones that are just kind of out on their own. And it's almost impossible to catch up because every year something costs more money.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just life overall. And I think there's a general doom with some of the younger generation where they see how much cost of everything has risen over the last couple of years. And it's like, well, I can afford this today, but am I going to be able to afford this in 5 years? Because look what just happened in the last 5 years. The opposite of that, the baby boomer generation, they are kind of going through the exact same fear, but they're realizing that everything that they listen to, save your money, 401k, so on and so forth, even if you did everything that you're supposed to do and you have the $1 million in your 401k in the bank, you're starting to look at how much everything went up and
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at a fixed income. And so they have the same fear. It's just kind of reversed.
That's such a good analysis because one, you are seeing the transfer of wealth. I mean, baby boomers don't. I mean, they don't even know what to do with their money, and a lot of them are gifting it to their kids.
Yeah.
I think that's a really smart thing to do because if you look at the data, it's anyone that owns a home, their net worth is like 44x what it is for a renter. But in order to qualify for a home loan, and this is a wild stat, and that you need to make $50,000 more than a renter to afford their housing payments for the average American right now.
Mm-hmm.
And rents have actually come down a little bit, which was a little surprising to see. That there was some data that just came out. Of course, I can't pull it up right now on my computer, but it was renters are now spending less than 24% of income on rent. So that number's come down a good bit. And I think rent has, and this is why the Fed is so maddening because they use owner's equivalent rent, which is like what someone hypothetically could rent out their home for. That data means nothing. Like,
No.
I'm sure you can rent out your home for a great number, but you're not going to do it. It's not out there. And then, so it's the 26th consecutive annual decline in rents based on percentage of income, according to Realtor.com. So, some people they're looking at this and like, why would I want to buy a home? It's going to cost me so much. And it's kind of where this was the American dream for a while, like buying a home. Like you would get married, have kids, buy a home, and now it's kind of going the other way. And I think that's one of the bottlenecks there. And now a lot of these millennials, they're having kids in a household, and they're like, well, what are we doing? And they're kind of rethinking it. It's kind of that's my observation. It's that they're in a different phase in life. Like it's one thing to be like engaged or married or household formation or even single renting, right? But then you have kids, you have a family, and you're planning on staying somewhere for a while. Who wants to move when you have kids because your landlord, once you out of there, doesn't want to renew the lease?
Yeah. And that's, anybody that's most of my clients that end up having kids or are in the process of having kids or planning on having kids, that's the driving factor.
Mm-hmm.
Just as much, the ones that are kind of like they dabble in the market and then they get out, they're financially capable of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But they see the fear of, well, I'm stuck with this now. And can I do something better with my money?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I even want to tie my money up in here and be stuck? Because the ability to be mobile is greater than it ever has before.
Yeah.
The two clients I met with last night, they're kind of zeroing in on a school district, but it doesn't matter where they go because they both work, remotely. And so I think that is one of the big things that's really changing everything right now. And so, especially as you see rents on the decline, if you don't have to buy and there's not a reason to buy, there's also that kind of human factor of remove all the stats and data that we're looking at. Why would you?
Well, and I think that's a great point. You don't have to buy a home. Don't feel like you need to. And the people that end up buying, usually they want to put some roots down. And that's the reason. I mean, I had a client a few years ago and they were moving out to the suburbs, had a place in the city, weren't seeing anything they liked.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what happened? The wife got pregnant. You know how fast they bought a home after that?
Probably within 30 days.
It was like 17 days. I remember, and it was just like, oh, I thought to myself, well, at least I didn't waste my time, but I think it's probably the right time for them to make a decision because that changes everything, and I don't think people really understand that. So that's where a lot of this, and people are having kids a lot later. I think that's something.
Well,
it's changed. Look at the average age of a first-time home buyer. It was 38 years old last year.
Every single one of my clients, I had 3 different sets of clients over the last couple of months that had kids. They're all in their 30s, all of them. So, and with what you said, I had the exact same scenario. They were all looking, we met, we're kind of going back and forth over 6 months, a little bit over 6 months. The second the baby came in, all of a sudden it was a different pressure, and you start getting your ducks in a row. And so it just goes back to when it's the right time for you, it's the right time for you.
I couldn't agree more. And I mean, we've got some mutual people we know that have had kids recently that, I mean, it's would have been unheard of to have children at that age 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
a social norm now.
And it's also like safer, science is better. I mean, there's a lot of reasons behind that. They do call you geriatric, though, if you're over 35 when you have a kid. This happened to my wife, so that's why. Well, I mean, you shouldn't do that, but that's what they called her. So it was very, but I remember sitting there. I'm like, wow, like, she's 35. She's not that old. Yeah. So anyway, so we're going to take a quick break. We broke down a lot there. If you're frustrated with the market, you need some help. You're hearing this data and it's making a lot of sense. Do yourself a favor. Click on the link in the comments. You can schedule a time to talk with Adam, and we can get you the information you need to make a good decision. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about a 500-car garage development, the Piazza development in Ardmore, some pushback on the Exton Mall. There's a whole bunch of local news we're going to break down next, as well as some incredible new listings and some open houses coming to the market next on Tool Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB-860 AM. All right. Welcome back to Tool Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB-860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. He's Adam Lavin. Adam, where's the best place for people to connect with you? Like, like a social handle you want to share, website? You tell me.
Yeah, sure.
I got them all, but where do you want to connect?
If you need to get me direct, it's adam.lavin@tomtoole.com. But if you just want to check me out and kind of follow me along, I'm not really the just listed, just sold guy and show you my trophy. But if you want to know a little bit about the market, you can follow me on Instagram. It's moving to the main line, and you can connect with me and DM me there.
Awesome. Very cool. So that's great. Moving to the main line on Instagram is where you want to connect with Adam. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we've got some local development news here. And this is, it's fascinating. We talk about all this stress in the market, and then you hear these things happening. So Ardmore, we were just talking about, Suburban Square in that area. And there was some news that dropped last week that Lower Merion Township is looking for developers for a 500-space garage near the Ardmore train station, which, it's wild that when you think about this, the SEPTA was on strike a couple weeks ago, and now they're talking about a 500-space garage, but that is also an Amtrak stop, which is important. And it's right next to the train station. So right now they got a parking lot there. They've had plans for several years. It's a 1-acre site, and they've never secured the funding for it. Now the township's considering an agreement that could lead to finding a developer there. What do you think about this? Is this good for the main line? Is this good for people that want to be close to public transportation? What's your reaction, Adam?
Well, I mean, the main line, traffic in and out of the city, especially along the main line, is just insanity. And so we need to do something to alleviate it. Does a parking garage accomplish that? I don't know. Is the reason that more people aren't taking public transportation in and out of the city and instead sitting in traffic on 76 or 95 or whichever way you go in? Is that the reason why? I don't know, but there's people obviously smarter than you or I that have figured this out, and so I would hope that that's the goal overall, and that's the goal is to alleviate a lot of the congestion that exists right now. Because I would say that partially what might hold back, some of the smaller businesses, the mom and pops being able to thrive more, is that sometimes when you get home from work, you don't want to go back out and drive to these places because you just sat in traffic forever. And so, if that is the option that alleviates some of this, then I think it's a great thing.
I tend to agree. Now they're also talking about having some commercial uses allowed at the property as well. So I could see some mixed use underneath, maybe the garage is on top. I mean, they're already building. Let me just give the rundown here of what's going on in Ardmore right now. There's a 131 unit apartment building at 115 Coulter Ave next to Suburban Square. There's already been one Ardmore, which everyone in Lower Marion, one Ardmore was the Dranoff development on the, it's right off like Cricket Ave. There were township meetings going on until like 3 a.m. fighting this. So but it was already approved. So this is, I would never go to one of those. But I lived in Ardmore for a long time. We don't live far from there now, and I do think it's good to see some new development come in there because it is kind of like the hub. I mean, you got the Amtrak station there. Obviously, you got Suburban Square. I think there's some validity to it, and they're developing the Piazza properties in the old IHOP right at the corner of Ardmore Ave and Lancaster Ave, where they're going to have it's right at like Lancaster, Greenfield, Ardmore, and West Athens. And there's going to be a lot of apartments built there as well. So there's going to be 270 apartments that have been approved over there. That's a lot of apartments. There's going to be one spot, 1.37 spots per unit. So there's going to be a total of 370. And there's going to be some mixed use there as well. Now, I mean, right now, these are kind of like dead spaces, and that's kind of right in that hub. So if you're worried about traffic, I just wouldn't go down Lancaster Avenue. I think that's probably, like Haverford Road or Montgomery Ave looks a lot better right now. But I do like seeing these areas get developed. Montgomery County they are pushing that 2050 plan where they're trying to develop areas like Ardmore. Ambler's another one where they want to have more space around public transportation because I think there's a legitimate feel along the main line that's like, what do people do on the weekends? There's not a lot of like restaurants and stuff like that. And I know you've got a restaurant background, but there's just not a lot around here in Lower Marion. And Radnor's probably got a little more, but they've got all these great spaces there. So, I mean, do you think that's going to help in terms of maybe having some more, places where people can go have some fun, grab a bite on the weekends? And then the question is, can the community support it?
Yeah, I think, I think the main thing is, can the community support it? Now, with whether it's retail or food and beverage, the main thing that's going to bring them is people that have the money to go. And so, if we could bring in all these high income renters, then I think it's 100% going to help. And with that, when business is able to thrive, more people are going to come, property values go up. And so it really helps everything all together. But it's, I think it 100% requires the support of the community.
Yeah. And I do get the sense a lot of people like, they don't like travel. You said they don't want to drive anywhere anymore. I mean, how many times you get a call from a client? I want to be walkable to Media. I want to be walkable to Phoenixville. I want to be walkable to West. I mean, there's these boroughs and hotspots that, and especially I think it's those millennial, like Gen Z buyers more so than the people that have like 3 kids, although they live there too. How often does that happen, and how often do they end up getting a property in a place like this?
It happens a lot. And
meaning the call and the inquiry.
Yeah.
Okay.
It happens a lot, the inquiry. And oddly enough, what you're describing is really those areas where we're seeing the property values continue to rise because, again, we have, the younger generations that want that accessibility to be able to walk to, a restaurant, even to the grocery store, and be able to do that. I think part of it is, accessibility. The other part is it creates more of a community feel. I mean, typically, whenever you have that type of community, it's got a little bit more of a safer vibe. People are out, people are walking, talking, interacting with each other. There's also a health aspect to it. People want to be out riding their bikes, walking way more than they ever used to.
Mm-hmm.
The balance of that is, also wants the exact same thing is the older generation that's downsizing.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to drive. Driving right now is a mess. And so as you get older, that if that's one less thing off your plate, great. And so can I get every single client in there that wants to? No, because, supply and demand is at its highest. And so this goes back to, hey, if we're building apartment complexes as well as, condo buildings potentially, there's definitely the desire for it. It's, can the community, again, get behind it, allow it to go on and let, what the public wants dictate what's coming.
I think that's really well said. And you talked about new construction earlier. The average new construction sale price in the 3-county area, Delaware, Montgomery, and Chester, ranges from like $850 to 1.5 million roughly. That's the average,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, some of those numbers start way higher depending on where you are.
850 is probably a townhouse right now.
I mean, and that's in Delaware County, but I mean, and then you look at Montgomery County, they're like 1.1. Chester County's there too, and it depends on where you are. I mean, you could maybe like in some of the more rural locations, like 850 is doable.
Yeah,
but I think that's not affordable for a lot of people.
Not at all.
I mean, that's our median sale price right now is like 460,000. So that's a really great point. We've got another one of these developments happening, and they're getting a lot of pushback here. I mean, we were talking about this before the show, and we've been trying to get Paul Abrams to come on. He is the developer of the Exton Square Mall, and they've been getting the crap beat out of him by Wes Whiteland, if you ask me. I mean, the mall's just so the Exton Square Mall's at 130, right? Like right at that intersection there. And they have had to go back to the Board of Supervisors a number of times. And lawmakers are now expressing concerns regarding the density of the project, the sewer capacity of the township, and the future of some of the historic buildings on that site. Because there are a couple like farmhouses like that are right there. One of them used to be a real estate office a long time ago. I grew up not far from there. And the board chair, Rajesh, I'm going to butcher this, Kumbarde, said this is going to be a development that's around for the next 50 to 75 years. I don't know whether our residents really want something like this. Well, it's a classic example of an elected official using guesswork instead of data. They could probably find this out pretty easily. And there was supposed to be a 50,000 square foot mainline health facility on the south side, which, especially with these hospital closures, I think is a really good thing. The mall was supposed to be demolished in 2027. They were going to add 700 homes. It was going to have an active adult community, homes for sale and rentals, and 280,000 square feet of retail. Originally, there was going to be a hotel there, and there was a pushback to revisit those plans as well. What do you think about this? Because the mall is doing absolutely nothing right now for anybody. I don't understand. Like, do they just want a vacant mall there?
Yeah, I don't. It doesn't really make sense to me. I think this turns into who's on that board and who's in charge. Is there an older generation that's looking back at data from their time and trying to project that onto what the future is going to require and need? Um, Health facilities are at an all-time high, and if you really want to talk about what downsizers look for, is how easy is it for me to gain access to healthcare? Where's my doctor? How far do I have to drive? I have to go X amount of times. And so, that I think is important. But beyond that, even just for the city, the township, this is the potential for taxes that can be reinvested. And so they're worried about infrastructure like the SOAR. Well, put something there, collect the taxes, and then improve the infrastructure.
Yeah, I look at King of Prussia, and that's an identical area, right? King of Prussia, before they built the town center, was kind of weird, especially that area. I mean, it was all like industrial space and everything else. And now you've got homes that are selling in the $600,000-$700,000 range there that were built. You've got some destination places people want to go to. I mean, they talk about Wegmans is one of them. I mean, you get people going to the retail there all the time. And I think that's we talk about development. That's what people really want. They want to be able to have that stuff that's close there. If you lived in King of Prussia, I mean, there was really nothing to do for a long time. And that mall obviously is a lot different because it's the destination shopping center for Philadelphia. You get people from the center city that go to that mall, which is unusual.
Well, and you know what, too, with especially if we're going to compare it to the town center, I think one of the main drivers of the town center with the local crowd is the fact that we're all stuck inside, either in our office jobs or if you're working remotely, you're completely removed from people and you're just kind of working through Zoom and emails all day. That type of environment has really gotten people out, because the one thing that does happen in the town center, they have like mini festivals, music out on the weekends. And so you could go out and interact with people and kind of make something of it. And it's still a family environment where you don't mind taking your kids out, or, people are walking with their dogs all the time. Like, that's what people want. The people want somewhere where they can go, where they feel like it's a community. And the more that we can build that, better off we're going to be.
Well, look at some of the stuff that happens in media. Media's done that with I mean, like Dining Under the Stars, they have festivals all the time. Now media was built and then they did that. Well, you could do that here with having that kind of infrastructure there. I was a friend of mine messaged me a couple weeks ago and said, "Hey, I'm going to Barry's Cheesesteaks in Roxborough, right? It's right by where my father-in-law lives." Little did we know there was an Oktoberfest going on. So instead of just meeting him we hung out, we listened to some music. He was in town visiting some family, and I dropped my kids off at my father-in-law's place. It was perfect. Like, people like that sort of stuff, and it creates a sense of community, which growing up in Chester Springs, that doesn't really exist out there. It's changed a little bit, but it's so spread out. It's nice to have that kind of hub it's pretty close. So I tend to agree with you. I used to I worked at American Eagle there for a couple of years. I mean, it was that was like the only thing to do. So I think that's a really great point.
Yeah, I think, the more that you can bring that and work that in with what you have already there, the better off your community is going to be in the long run. I mean, even, we talked about King of Prussia and Upper Marion, even out to Phoenixville. Like, Phoenixville was nothing, and they turned that main street into luxury apartments, luxury condos. The price of homes is shot through the roof for just regular row homes, and people have come in and redeveloped them and turned them into something great.
Incredible.
And the communities band together. All of the restaurants and retail are involved, and they have street fairs and everything going on all the time. And people wanted to move out to an area that they were even unfamiliar with because they felt like they were part of a community.
Yep.
And I think if we can create that in Exton and just the surrounding area, it's going to improve the community overall.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I went to grade school in Kimberton. We didn't go into Phoenixville when I was a kid. This was like the 80s and 90s. There was a baseball card store, and we went there. It was called JR's, and that was it. That was the only place we were allowed to go. But you didn't go into the borough. It wasn't, people went to the high school. People lived there, but the retail was like blah. I mean, it was kind of depressing. So I mean, people in Phoenixville should be really proud of what they've been able to develop, for sure. I think there's a lot of pride there. And people talk about it now, and this could do the same thing for Exton. It'd be more like a King of Prussia, not like that. Phoenixville's got the infrastructure, but it could be close for people. That's how you build community, and I think that a lot of these, that's what we're seeing more and more of. So that's a great point on your part, Adam, for sure. So we only got a couple minutes left here. I want to talk about some new listings we have coming to the market. So and we got some open houses too. You got one this weekend over on Chatham Place. You want to kind of share what's happening there, what the property's like, and encourage some people to come by?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's an absolutely amazing property. It's a 4-bedroom colonial with a finished basement. There's a full deck, a screened-in back porch next to it. And the amazing thing is it's on a little bit over an acre of land. And the back part of the property, which wraps around to all the properties back in this cul-de-sac, which is another benefit because it's a quiet area. It's actually Ridley Creek State Park. So A, you don't have to worry about development, and B, you have like the most tranquil backyard you can ever imagine. If you walk up the street towards the end of the cul-de-sac, there's actually a private trail to get into the park. So you really can't lose, and it's in Rose Tree Media School District.
Yeah, so 3304 Chatham Place is the address there. And when's the open house this weekend?
It's Saturday from 2 to 4.
Saturday from 2 to 4. And you can make a whole day out of this, Adam. You can go to media, you can grab some lunch, or you can go to an early dinner, go to happy hour. You don't have to worry about the Phillies depressing you this weekend anymore. I think that's been kind of a nice change of pace from my last couple of weekends. But I mean, and it's what, maybe 7-8 minutes from Media Borough. I mean, tops. So it's great location there. And the asking price on that home, $775. It's 4 beds, 2.5 baths. Saturday, 2 to 4. Go see Adam. And if you can't make the open house, he can schedule a private tour for you with the link in the comments here. So feel free to click on that, and we can get you in. We got a couple other properties coming to the market this week. The first one's on Gypsy Lane in King of Prussia. It's in Upper Marion Township. This is a 6,000 square foot home. It's a big house. 6 beds, 5 full, 1/2 bath. Asking price of $1.95 million. It's on 2.5 acres. And this home's got a lot of original details. It's built in the 1920s, so it's got a lot of modern amenities, but it feels like it's got some of that natural character too, kind of like what you talked about with those homes in Phoenixville. Showing start for this on the 17th, so on Friday, $1.95 million, 123 Gypsy Lane in King of Prussia, and that's being shown by appointment only. So again, Adam can get you in there. All you got to do is click on the link, schedule a time there. We've got another property at 1211 Reed Alley. So that's actually in the town center over in King of Prussia. That's a 3-bed, 2.5 bath. Zara Sala from our team is sitting some open houses there on And the open houses are not this weekend, but they're next weekend. So right now it's appointment only. Showings are going to start for this home on the 17th. The showings, the open house will be the following weekend. This is 3 beds, 2.5 baths, 1,545 square feet. It's all redone. Big center island. And they got a really large finished basement there. If you've been in these homes, they're a little misleading from the outside. Do you ever think they're as big as they are when you go into these places?
No.
It's like wild. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you think you're getting, and so they've got a full finished basement, 3 beds, 2 full baths, about 2,000 square feet, and they've got an attached 1-car garage that gets you right in there. Clean, neat, ready to go. And if you're looking for a place you can walk to the town center, this is it. That's asking $650,000. And the last new listing we've got here, let me get the address up. It's 2340 Providence Avenue in Chester. They're going to be asking $280,000 for this property. It's in really great shape. I mean, this is especially for getting a 5-bed, 2-bath, single family home. They're asking $280,000. It's 2,200 square feet, and that's going to be open over the weekend as well, from 12 to 2 on Saturday, 11 to 1 on Sunday, and they've got a one car driveway there, so you got off-street parking, big covered front porch, big house, 280,000. So that's some new listings we got coming to the market this week. Adam, before we go, and I really want to ask you this here, we talk about real estate and understanding the market here. For people that are maybe on the fence right now, what's the best advice you have for them? Because I think this is, and it's there's so many people that are uncertain about the market.
If they're on the fence, really, my main question is, hey, what do you want the next 5 years of your life to look like? And if your plan is to stay put, you're in the job that you want, you don't plan on relocating for a job. That's not the career trajectory that you're on. You're really trying to work within the company that you're in, or if you have a local business. There's no timing the market. If you find the right house, pull the trigger on it, because there's no guarantee that property values are going to stay where they're at. There's probably the probability that they're going to be slightly higher. And in terms of waiting for interest rates to drop, there's also no guarantee that they're going to drop. The only guarantee we have is that if they do drop, human nature is going to push the property values up. So what are you actually gaining? And then there's a time where, Tom, honestly, you just have to, it's our job to advise people, I think. And it might not be the time. It might not be the time
Great
right
advice.
now. And so maybe don't do something where you're going to regret it 2 years from now, and make the right decision for yourself there. So if you're on the fence and you have the ability to do it, and the next 5 years of your life are right here, now's the time. And that's really my advice to people.
Well said. And I think anytime you get someone that tells you, hey, it's not the right time, that's the kind of person you want to work with, because they're going to do what's best for you, not what's best for them. And I think that's one of the problems with our industry. So you want to follow Adam. He's on Instagram. Give me the handle again. I think you just changed this, by the way, because I had okay, all right. I feel better now because I had one written down.
I did.
Where can people follow you?
It's Move to the Main Line.
Move to the Main Line on Instagram. You can follow me at Tom Toole 3RD. That's all we got this week. We'll be back next Tuesday at 3 o'clock on WWDB 860 AM on Tool Time Real Estate Radio.